the surface of our waking awareness lies an oceanic realm of hidden desires, repressed memories, and archetypal forces that shape our lives in ways we rarely comprehend. Like an iceberg revealing only its tip above water, while concealing its massive bulk below, consciousness represents but a fragment of the vast psychological landscape that defines who we are and why we behave as we do. This hidden dimension of human experience, what Freud termed the unconscious, holds the keys to understanding not just our compulsions and fears, but also our deepest longings and untapped potential. The recognition that we are not masters of our own psychological house represents both a humbling and liberating discovery. Humbling because it challenges our illusion of rational control over our thoughts, emotions, and actions. Liberating because it opens the door to a more authentic relationship with ourselves, one that acknowledges the full spectrum of human nature rather than the sanitized version we often present to the world and even to ourselves. The journey into the unconscious begins with the simple yet profound observation that our conscious mind often operates like a well-intentioned but overworked security guard, attempting to manage and filter the overwhelming complexity of internal experience. This psychological gatekeeper decides which thoughts deserve attention, which emotions are acceptable to feel, and which desires are permissible to acknowledge. Yet this filtering process, while necessary for daily functioning, inevitably creates a shadow realm where rejected aspects of self continue to exist and exert their influence. Carl Jung expanded upon Freud's foundational insights, recognizing that the unconscious contains not only personal repressed material, but also collective patterns inherited from our shared human heritage. These archetypal forces, the hero, the mother, the wise old man, the shadow, operate like psychological templates that influence our perceptions, relationships, and life choices in ways that transcend individual experience. Understanding these deeper patterns allows us to recognize when we are living out inherited scripts rather than authoring our own authentic story. The exploration of hidden desires requires tremendous courage because it demands that we face aspects of ourselves that may contradict our carefully constructed self-image. The successful businessman who discovers a deep longing to be an artist, the devoted parent who acknowledges resentment toward their children, the spiritual seeker who confronts their hunger for power and recognition. These revelations can be profoundly unsettling, yet they also represent opportunities for integration and wholeness. The process of making the unconscious conscious is not merely an intellectual exercise, but a deeply embodied journey that often manifests through dreams, physical symptoms, relationship patterns, and creative expressions. Dreams, in particular, serve as nightly communications from the unconscious, offering symbolic narratives that reflect our inner conflicts, unmet needs, and emerging potentials. Learning to engage with dream imagery, not as random neural firing, but as meaningful communication from deeper aspects of self, opens new avenues for self-understanding and growth. The body, too, serves as a repository of unconscious material. Chronic tension, recurring illnesses, and physical symptoms often carry emotional and psychological information that the conscious mind has been unable or unwilling to process. The tight shoulders that hold unexpressed anger, the digestive issues that reflect difficulty digesting, life experiences, the headaches that emerge when we feel overwhelmed by conflicting desires. These somatic expressions invite us to listen to the wisdom of the body and explore what lies beneath the surface of our awareness. Relationship patterns offer another window into the unconscious realm. We often find ourselves repeatedly attracting similar types of partners, recreating familiar dynamics, or reacting with disproportionate intensity to certain behaviors or personality traits. These patterns rarely make sense from a purely rational perspective, but become comprehensible when viewed through the lens of unconscious attraction and projection. We are drawn to people who carry qualities we have disowned in ourselves or who represent unfinished psychological business from our past. The concept of projection, whereby we unconsciously attribute our own disowned qualities to others, represents one of the most important mechanisms for understanding hidden desires. What we most strongly react to in others, whether with attraction or aversion, often reflects aspects of ourselves that we have not fully acknowledged or integrated. The person who triggers our anger may be expressing aggression we have suppressed. The individual we idealize may embody creativity or freedom we have denied ourselves. By reclaiming these projections, we reclaim lost parts of our authentic self. The process of exploring the unconscious is not without its risks and challenges. Premature or unsupported confrontation with repressed material can lead to psychological overwhelm or destabilization. This is why traditional wisdom traditions have always emphasized the importance of gradual preparation, skilled guidance, and strong container for this inner work. Whether through therapy, spiritual practice, creative expression, or contemplative disciplines, the journey into the depths requires both courage and wisdom, yet the rewards of this exploration are immense. As we bring hidden desires into conscious awareness, we begin to understand the true sources of our motivation and behavior. We discover that many of our seemingly irrational fears, compulsive behaviors, and self-sabotaging patterns have deeper psychological roots that, once understood, can be transformed. We also uncover buried treasures, creative capacities, emotional depths, and spiritual longings that have been waiting in the darkness for recognition and expression. The integration of unconscious material does not mean acting out every hidden desire or impulse. Rather, it involves developing a conscious relationship with these forces so that they can inform and enrich our lives, rather than controlling them from the shadows. The person who acknowledges their hunger for recognition can channel this energy into meaningful achievement rather than manipulative attention-seeking. The individual who owns their capacity for anger can use this fire to establish healthy boundaries rather than exploding in destructive rage. This process of psychological integration represents a fundamental aspect of what Jung called individuation, the lifelong journey toward becoming who we truly are rather than who we think we should be. Individuated people possess a quality of authenticity and presence that comes from having faced and integrated their shadow material. They are no longer at war with themselves, no longer exhausted by the effort of maintaining a false persona that excludes essential aspects of their nature. The exploration of hidden desires also reveals the profound connection between personal psychology and spiritual development. Many of our deepest unconscious longings are actually spiritual in nature. Desires for transcendence, meaning, connection, and purpose that have been distorted by cultural conditioning or personal trauma. The recovering addict may discover that their compulsive behavior masked a genuine hunger for spiritual experience. The workaholic may find that their drivenness conceals a desire to serve something greater than themselves. Modern neuroscience has provided fascinating validation for many insights about the unconscious that depth psychology has long recognized. We now know that the vast majority of brain activity occurs below the threshold of conscious awareness, that emotional processing often precedes rational thought, and that implicit memory systems can influence behavior without conscious recollection. These findings support the understanding that consciousness, while precious and important, represents only a small portion of the total psychological picture. The implications of this understanding extend far beyond individual psychology to encompass our relationships, communities, and collective human challenges. Many of the conflicts and dysfunctions we see in the world can be understood as collective manifestations of unintegrated shadow material. The scapegoating of minority groups, the demonization of political opponents, the environmental destruction driven by unconscious greed. These phenomena reflect the same psychological dynamics that operate within individuals, projected onto the larger stage of human civilization. Working with our own unconscious material thus becomes not only a personal healing journey, but also a contribution to collective healing. As we become more conscious of our own projections and shadow dynamics, we become less likely to participate in the unconscious perpetuation of harm. We develop the capacity to see through the surface of conflicts to the deeper psychological dynamics at play, and we can respond with greater wisdom and compassion. The practice of active imagination, developed by Jung, offers a powerful method for engaging directly with unconscious content. By learning to dialogue with dream figures, fantasy images, and symbolic representations that arise from the depths, we can establish ongoing communication with aspects of self that have been marginalized or ignored. This practice requires a willingness to suspend rational judgment and enter into genuine relationship with the non-rational aspects of psyche. Creative expression of all kinds, whether through art, writing, music, dance, or other forms, provides another avenue for bringing unconscious material into conscious awareness. When we create from an authentic place, we often surprise ourselves with what emerges. The poem that writes itself, the painting that reveals hidden emotions, the song that expresses longings we couldn't put into words. These creative products serve as messengers from the depths, carrying information and energy that can transform our understanding of ourselves. The cultivation of what might be called unconscious literacy, the ability to read and interpret the symbolic language of the depths, represents an essential skill for anyone serious about self-knowledge and personal growth. This involves learning to recognize when unconscious dynamics are at play, developing comfort with ambiguity and paradox, and trusting the wisdom that emerges from non-rational sources. Perhaps most importantly, the exploration of hidden desires requires us to develop a new relationship with shame and judgment. Much of what we have relegated to the unconscious realm has been banished there by internalized voices of criticism and rejection. Healing requires extending compassion toward all aspects of ourselves, recognizing that even our most troubling impulses and desires carry important information about our needs, wounds, and unlived potentials. The integration of the unconscious is not a destination, but an ongoing process that deepens throughout our lives. As we mature and face new challenges, previously unconscious material continues to emerge, inviting us to expand our self-understanding and embrace ever greater dimensions of our humanity. The person who embarks upon this journey with sincerity and persistence will find themselves becoming more authentic, more creative, more compassionate, and more alive. The hidden desires that reside in the depths of our being are not obstacles to overcome, but treasures to uncover. They represent not just our wounds and limitations, but also our unrealized potentials and deepest truths. By learning to navigate the larger circle of the unconscious with wisdom and courage, we open ourselves to a richer, more meaningful, and more authentic way of being in the world. The journey into the depths is ultimately a journey home to ourselves, to the full spectrum of who we are and who we have the potential to become.